Hey, Blue Table fans! It's time for our next installment of How to Play Warhammer 40k 6th Edition. And you'd think this one would be obvious. What's the object of the game? How do you actually win this game? And how is it different from previous editions? That's enormously important. I believe it was 4th or 5th edition that it was, in fact I'm pretty sure it was 5th, where it was troops choices became the only scoring units. And that made a big difference on how you played and what you actually brought to the battle. It's significant to note that the missions are random. So when you're sitting down to play a game, unless for some reason you've decided to pick one, it could be any number of missions. And so you make your army list before that. So how do you pick your army so that it can win the game in a variety of conditions? So today we're going to take a look at each mission. I'm going to show you the board and show you what they look like. Okay, first off, every single mission has 3 secondary mission objectives. Slay the warlord, so you get a point if you kill the enemy commander. And there's only one in the enemy, so it's not like any HQ, but one of them is picked to be the warlord. First blood, that means you kill whoever kills the first enemy unit. And line breaker, that means you just need one model in your opponent's deployment zone. You get a point for that. So there's these 3 bonus points that come into play. And as you may notice, they all require you to kind of get out of your comfort zone. You can't just play passively, and that is very notable. So the mission number 1 is Crusade. And in Crusade, you put D3 plus 2 primary objectives. So just like in the last edition, objectives have to be a foot away from the edge of the board, and they also have to be a foot away from another objective. So you could have as few as 3 objectives, or you could have as many as 5. So let's roll just for kicks and giggles. 1, so that would be 1 objective plus 2, so there would only be 3 objectives, and each one's worth 3 points. So how many points can you score in scenario 1? You score 3 per thing, so in this case it would be 9, and then you have the 3 bonus points. So you could, if you achieved all the objectives, you could get as many as 12 points for that. And of course, if you had rolled up 5 objectives, that would be 15 for those. So it's important to note that only troops choices can score objectives. And in fact, let me go over that with you because it is very, very important. Okay, so basically there's 4 different types of units that cannot be scoring or denial units. A denial unit means they can't take an objective, but they can prevent your enemy from taking it if you're also within 3 inches of it. Okay, it's a vehicle or a unit currently embarked on a transport vehicle or occupying a unit occupying a building. So, so vehicles can't take objectives, if I'm reading that right. Swarms can't take objectives. Currently falling back. So those units can't be scoring units or denial units ever. And then troops, unless of course the rule book said specifically, all units, including troops, are denial units, except obviously vehicles. So, yeah. My opinion is that you got to bring a lot of troops because, well, let's just continue with the missions and then you can decide for yourself. So that's Crusade. Next one is Purge the Alien. So in mission number 2, you can get 1 point for every unit that is in the enemy army. So independent characters count. Also transports count too. So when you're making your army list, you have to think, well, if I roll a 2, how many points could my opponent score off of me? Because if you go for what's called MSU, which is multiple small units, that has the drawback of your opponent would be able to kill off those units more quickly, whereas if you consolidate your units, like let's say you just had 6 very expensive units, well, That would be great for mission 2, but maybe not so great for some of the objective missions if you didn't have very many troops choices. Let's move on to mission number 3, which is Big Guns Never Tire. So this one's the same as Crusade, the first one, where you take D3 plus 2 mission objectives. So you could have as few as 3 or as many as 5 objectives. Now, Big Guns Never Tire changes it up just a little bit in the heavy support department. For every heavy support choice that you kill, you get a bonus 1 victory point. But heavy support choices also become scoring units. So that changes things up a little bit. So when you're making your army list, you have to think, okay, if I include 6 heavy support choices, which you could in a double force org chart, how does that affect the game? Well, I have 6 more scoring units to get objectives, but my opponent can get 6 victory points. But let's not forget that each one of these objective markers, by the way, these are made by Gale Force 9 and they're awesome, they are worth 3 points. So let's say I took 4 heavy support choices. That means in Big Guns Never Tire, my opponent could get 3 per objective. Let's say you roll an average of 4, so that'd be 12 points, plus the 3 bonus ones, that's 15. Plus, my opponent could score up to 4 bonus victory points by killing off my vehicles. So you have, excuse me, not vehicles. I shouldn't have said that. It's heavy support choices. So, and that's a big difference because that could be Devastators, could be Dark Reapers, could be a Wraith Lord. There's a lot of different heavy support choices that are not vehicles. But I would dare say heavy support does have more vehicles than the other slots do. So that's mission number 3, Big Guns Never. All right, the next mission, which is mission number 4, is my personal favorite. It's called the Scouring. And in this mission, you have 6 objective markers. But at the beginning of the game, each one secretly is marked on the bottom. I don't know if you can see it, but I wrote in Sharpie. Is marked with a number. So when you're placing them, you don't know what the number is. But it goes, there's a 4, there's a 3, a 2, 2, and a 1, and for a total of 15 points there. And yeah, so you place those, and the number, which is revealed after you've deployed, but at the beginning of the game, then you can see how much they're worth. And I have to tell you, and this is the one I played with Mason, this is really interesting because you kind of have to prioritize. And in this one, fast attack becomes scoring, and each fast attack choice is worth 1 bonus victory point. So you've got, so for the D3 plus 2 objective marker games, you've got an average of 4 objective markers worth 3 each, so that's about 12 points of objectives on the table. In this one, you've got 15 points of objectives on the table. And that is really super interesting. In Purge the Alien, as you may recall, it was however many, each enemy unit is worth 1. And I would dare say that's probably 10 to 15 victory points on the table. So you really have to watch your objectives. And now it's probably, in any given game, it's going to be between 15 and 20 victory points total possible. And some of them duplicatable. So like an objective marker, let's say this was worth 3 points, only 1 person can get those 3 points. But for Warlord, kill the enemy Warlord, you could both get it. For Line Breaker, which is one of the bonus victory point things, you could both get it, both have things. You can't both have First Blood though. So, you know, I'm predicting most games will end up being probably 5 to 10 victory points per side. And yeah, it's very interesting. So that's mission number 4 is the Scouring. So when you're making your army list, you have to think, how many victory points am I giving up? So, and there's a balance. So how am I going to claim objectives? Because that's the lion's share of the victory points right there. How can I claim objectives? Well, the only way you can claim objectives is troops. So you can either take units that can just kill the enemy, and that's where your uber units come in. But the thing is, those combos I don't think aren't so overpowered that strategy is actually going to be viable. And it depends on the good old troops. The thing with rapid fire weapons now being move and shoot and basically get no penalty, no notable penalty for that, that's notable, because usually it's the HQs and the Uber units, they don't have those types of weapons. It's the regular guys that just got a real boost to their firepower. And I think that's super. Quite frankly, I'm in the process of painting up 120 Necron warriors, and I wanna get those guys on the board and see how they do. Just, you know, a block of 20 Necron warriors, they can really dish out the punishment. And that's true of Kroot, Tau Fire Warriors, Space Marine Tac Squads, all those units, those really, in fact, help me list it out. How many troops choices got a boost from the rule change to rapid fire? Okay, so let's move on. So, by the way, that's the scouring. So when you make your army list, you have to, see, we're not moving on, I got distracted again. When you make your army list, you've got to consider how many victory points am I giving up. So how many kill points? If you rolled a 2, how many kill points are in your army? If you rolled up Big Guns Never Tire, how many bonus points would you get from heavy support? But see, then that becomes a bonus too. So if I have 4 heavy support choices, well great, my opponent can get 4 bonus victory points if they wipe them all out, but they're also scoring. And scoring units are huge, an absolutely huge deal. By the way, there's no mission where that happens for elites. There's missions where they change up heavy support, and there's missions where they change up fast attack. Okay, let's look at mission number 5. And that is the Emperor's Will. Blah. Okay, so, in this one, you place only, this should be familiar to you from the last edition. You place a primary objective marker in your own deployment zone, and each one's worth 3 points. And it's got the 3 secondary objectives, which you are familiar with, and that's about it. So, guide number 5 is a little strange. It's not like the other ones. There's only 6 points from objective markers on the board in the Emperor's Will. The last one, which you saw played in the bat rep I had versus Chaos Space Marines and Demons, is called the Relic. And okay, batteries ran out. Okay, so in the Relic, there's only one objective. It's right smack dab in the middle of the table. You got to run out. Only troops can pick it up. It's moved very slowly. So again, you got to have a lot of troops, and you have to think, if you rolled this one, how would you've got to have some fast movers in your army. You have to think, how could I zip out and contest objectives? How could I hold them? And in this case, wouldn't it be great to have a troops choice that was really could get to the middle of the board on turn 1 if you were the first person going? What armies have troops choices that move 12 inches or more? What armies have troops choices that, hold on, can you only move 6 inches with it? So the model cannot run and can never move more than 6 inches in any phase. Wow. But if you had something fast, like say Eldar jet bikes, those come to mind. If you had something fast that could get out there, you could at least pick it up right away, assuming the jet bikes could last through the withering fire. Yeah, dropping the relic. I mean, there's a whole page on how this battle is done. But the point is, there's only 3. If you have this objective in this scenario, you get 3 points. How could your opponent beat that? They can't beat it, because even if you got the Warlord and First Blood, well, I guess you could tie it through First Blood, Warlord, and Line Breaker, which is get a enemy model into your, get a model into your enemy's deployment zone. You could tie it up. So actually, if I were playing this scenario again, First Blood would be a huge deal. because that could make it so even if your opponent grabbed the relic, the one objective, you could still tie it up using the other objectives, and maybe at the last minute kill off the unit that's carrying it and make it so he doesn't score those points. So, so there's the 6 missions, and I think they're hugely important to the game and how it's played. What I'm hoping for in 6th edition is that the old troops choices will end up being kind of the meat and potatoes of the game. And I'm going to do a separate video and commentary about that.